AI is a massive disruptor. A massive disruptor. This is no joke. I mean, this is taking over our industry. It's going to completely change the way we do business. It's going to completely change how our offers need to look. It's going to change everything, actually. Spending on information, coaching, services, stuff in my industry. There is a resistance to doing that right now. This isn't going to sound pretty, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm preparing you and educating you properly so that you know what's coming, you know what to be prepared for. It's easier than I think it's ever been before for the average person to have a crack at starting a business. They've got a great idea, they've got a great business, and they've got a great offer. They just simply don't know how to communicate it in a really effective way. It's such a powerful strategy that the industry has abused it. We did well over £1 million in sales. You can still get those conversions even in the market that we're in right now. Hey, welcome back to the Expansion Podcast. It's great to have you here. In this episode, we are going to be talking about some potentially quite terrifying, but at the same time, exciting things, depending on how you view them and how you're positioned. You know, there's a storm coming, and you're going to find yourself in one of three positions. You're either going to be caught in the storm, you're going to be weathering the storm, or you're actually going to find that you're able to control it and actually use it and thrive within it. There are some big things happening and reshaping our industry. The way that we position ourselves and our businesses, the way that we drive traffic, the way that we generate customers and clients, and the way that we, of course, expand our businesses. And I think the decisions that we make here will be the difference between us continuing from this moment forward into the next few months and years to be able to expand our businesses and actually do it faster and easier than ever before, or completely go out of business. And so the next 3 episodes of this podcast, including this one, we'll be addressing these changes and the current landscape of our industry and exploring the solutions, or at least the ways in which we should be responding, and the things that me and my team are doing and putting in place to hopefully stay ahead. And you can copy us so that you can also stay ahead as well. You know, last week I did a 90-minute session on this very topic and a full presentation to my expansion mastermind clients. And what I have right here on the screen, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, are my notes from that session. And so I'm going to be breaking this up into the next 3 episodes, and I'm going to have my notes here because I don't want to miss anything for you. Today, we're going to be addressing the issues and the changes in the marketplace, and so that you have clarity over kind of where we stand right now and what you need to be aware of. And then we're going to talk about the way in which we should be responding to these changes, particularly in the way that we're positioning ourselves and our branding, the way that we're creating and offering and selling the programs and the services and the courses and the consulting perhaps that we have, and also the way in which we position our operation. You know, like how are we even tracking the things that are happening within the business and making sure that we're making good decisions. Then we're going to progress to the next episode after this one, where we'll take all the stuff we've talked about today, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to respond to these changes in the form of traffic and getting attention online and getting eyeballs online, and then how we can turn that attention into interested prospects. So that'll all be in episode 2. And then in episode 3, we're going to see how this all reflects on marketing and sales. You know, how we positioning ourselves is today, and then traffic is the next episode. And then once we have that traffic and we have those eyeballs, how are we doing the right marketing to those people, and how are we doing the sales to make sure that we're actually generating clients? And so without further ado, let's get into this because we've got a lot to cover. If you're watching the video version of this podcast, I first, before anything else, need to introduce you to this. And if you're just listening to this podcast, I'll explain it to you. This is the momentum framework, and what we're currently looking at is a visual representation of the entire model that I use to launch, grow, and then expand and scale my 7 and some of them have become 8-figure businesses at this point. And there's 5 steps to this framework. And I'm going to very quickly whiz you through this because it's important that you understand this as context, because all the things we're going to talk about today and over the next 2 more episodes is all centered around this blueprint. Firstly, how have we come up with this? Like, where did this even come from? I have, over the course of the last 10 years, I've built a variety of different businesses. I've had some successes, I've had some failures, and I've had everything in between. And I've learned a thing or two about some of the core principles for growing and scaling these types of businesses. And when I say type, we're talking about courses, we're talking about coaching, we're talking about packaging up your expertise in a variety of different ways, including maybe even providing a service or having an agency of some kind. And there are some things that are just critically important that we all do in whatever business we have. I'll keep putting this up to refer to it when I need. The first step is the foundations, and I call this getting your house in order. Okay, before you go out there and start driving traffic and trying to put yourself in front of potential clients, you need to first have your house in order, because if you don't, in my experience, you're basically building your business on sinking sand. There's no solid foundation. You're not even really sure what you're doing. You feel like you're fumbling around and just kind of exploring this industry, but you don't really have any concrete or solid plan. And so even if you do start to get some attention and start to see some results, it just starts to have your business sinking and crumbling and falling into the abyss. What we need is to build a solid foundation first, so that everything we do thereafter is actually going to stack on top of each other and thus allow us to expand and grow a business. So getting your house in order really comes down to four things. At the very top of the blueprint that we're looking at is you. You sit at the very top of the house. We have to work on you. And this is working on your mindset. This is working on your confidence. This is working on your presentation skills and your communication skills. I find that for a lot of people that I've worked with over the years and different clients in different ways in which I've worked with them, they've got a great idea and they've got a great business and they've got a great offer. And where it falls flat and where they don't see any results, even though they've got something great, is that they just simply don't know how to communicate it in a really effective way. Because a big part of us growing and scaling businesses like ours is actually making sure that the audience knows why they should pick you over the competition. You could have the best product in the world, but if you can't communicate it very well, then you won't land clients. And you could, ironically, then have one of your competitors have a pretty crappy product, and it's not going to deliver a good service to the end user, but they're really good at marketing, really good at communication. They are going to win the client. So you've got a better product, but your competition are winning the clients. And so, things like this are critically important: communication, confidence. And then when it comes to mindset, I used to think that was a bunch of hocus pocus, but actually it's really important, to make sure that you're not suffering from imposter syndrome, that you do have confidence and clarity over what you're attempting to do. So you sit at the very top, really, really important. And underneath that, we've got three things. We've got the offer, brand, and operations. We've got to make sure that our offer is positioned to speak to the right people at the right time in the right way, and priced for the market as well, to make sure that you're getting dream clients. Then brand. And branding's really important now. It never used to be. Go back 10 years ago, you didn't need to have a brand, a logo, a name, a brand presence, origin stories, none of that stuff. Now it's actually very important. We're going to talk about that more later on today. And then you've got your operation. This is the business that you have, the foundation it's built on, the way in which you're tracking the data coming in to make good decisions. It's the team that you've got, it's the admin. It's just making sure that you've got a tidy, clean, and lean operation. So that's getting your house in order. Then underneath that, we have step 2. That was step 1. Once we have our house in order, we move to step 2, which is attention. How do we get that attention? There are 3 ways. We buy it, we run a paid ad, we build it, we produce content like I'm doing right now, or 3, we borrow it, we find someone else that has the audience that we want, and we get in front of those people. Again, over the course of the next 3 lessons, we'll talk more about this. Then we've got step 3, which is marketing. So where are we bringing all of that attention when we find it and gather it online? Well, we need to move it into our sales process. So we need to capture them as leads so we can build our audience and build our email list. And then we need to send them through to what's called a conversion vehicle, a place where we're now taking that attention, turning them into leads. And once they're leads, now how are we converting them from a cold lead into a warm prospect? So that's marketing. Step 4 is sales. Okay, once we have those warm prospects, how are we then getting them across the line and converting them into a customer and or a client? And the way in which we do sales is changing dramatically right now, and we're going to talk about that actually quite a bit over the next 3 episodes. So that's step 4, and then finally we got step 5, and that is nurture and convert. So we're going to be nurturing and converting more of the leads that we generated that didn't convert the first time, and there's different strategies and ways that we do that. And we're also going to be nurturing and converting the clients that we have to actually turn them from a one-time client into a lifelong client. And again, there's lots of ways we're increasing LTV, which stands for lifetime value of a client in the business. By the way, if you want a copy of this, I put this together as a client resource, but since we're going to be talking about this quite a lot over the next 3 episodes, you can get the download of this if you want to be following along. Just message me on Instagram, just search for my name on Instagram and just DM me the word momentum, and my team will reach out and we'll send that to you. So now that you understand the momentum framework, a lot of what we're talking about is kind of tying into that. And so let's get into firstly the doom and gloom of the situation. This isn't going to sound pretty, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm preparing you and educating you properly so that you know what's coming, you know what to be prepared for, and then we can make some really, really good decisions to make sure that you not only stay in business, but actually have a chance to thrive in this storm that's coming. So the first thing, and this is going to be no surprise to you that it's on the list. In fact, it's one of the most prominent things that's actually shaping our industry right now. And that is that AI is a massive disruptor. And some of you are listening to this right now saying, yep, John, I already know that, next. And others of you are saying, is it really? I'm not sure. I'm kind of dabbling with it. I'm looking into it. So there are 3 camps that you might fall into when you think about AI. And one of them is the wrong answer. And then the other 2 are both kind of, I guess, right answers, but there's one that I'm going to heavily push you towards in this podcast episode. So the first camp is dismissive, okay? There's a group of people that fall into this camp where they are pretending it's not there, it's not a thing, it's not as disruptive as everyone's saying it's going to be, and it'll just blow over, and they're just dismissing that it's really as world-shaping as it's going to be. And then we've got the interested camp. And I think you already know which one perhaps is the wrong answer already. It's dismissive. Then you've got the interested camp. These are people that know that it's going to be disruptive and that it's a big deal. And so we're kind of interested, right? We're looking into it. We're playing with it. We're installing different apps and, adding note takers to our meetings. And we're just starting to get our foot in the door, and we're interested in what's going on, right? The third camp is obsessed. This is people who are spending hours and hours each day thinking about it, playing with it, like molding it, bringing it into their business, bringing it into their life in every way. And they are utterly obsessed with this. And right now, some would say they're spending a disproportionate amount of time on it, but it's because they can see the future and know where we're going. And that's the category that I actually want to push you towards. I used to be in the interested category, and I've now moved over to obsessed. Why? Because this is no joke. I mean, this is taking over our industry. It's going to completely change the way we do business. It's going to completely change how our offers need to look. It's going to change everything, actually. And so, if you're not obsessed, if you're just interested, you're playing a very risky game, because you're running the risk that you will be too far behind when the storm really hits, and you only dabbled and you weren't fully prepared and fully protected. Whereas if you're obsessed now, you're going to find you are years ahead of other people, and while they're scrambling and freaking out, you've managed to find a way to thrive within it, and you're only going to be able to do that if you're obsessed. So, my team and everything, I'm orientating us all towards this. There's a few things I want us to think about as to why AI is a massive disruptor, and again, we don't even fully know where this is going, but there are some things that we can notice right now. First, I don't know when you're watching this or listening to this podcast, so I don't know if this website is still active, but in case it is, you can check it out. It's called AI-2027.com, and it's a few of the people who are at the very forefront of AI tech development, working at OpenAI and these different places, and they basically put a prediction together as to where this is going over the course of the next little while, leading into kind of mid-2027 and beyond. And some very smart people, far smarter than me, and there's a very good chance they're far smarter than you as well, predict that by the time we hit kind of mid-2027, we're going to be at a point where we have superhuman AI, meaning that AI is smarter than every human being that currently exists on the planet. And the repercussions of that are, of course, huge. And we're not going to dive too deep into those right now. Otherwise, this would just be an AI podcast, and of course, we could talk about this for hours. But the implications of that are massive. And then we're moving from AI to AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, to where not only are they now superhuman, which means they can just do any task better than any human being on the planet, but they're going to be able to think for themselves, rationalize, and actually plan. And so now they're starting to even, take those elements of what we're good at as humans, actually strategizing and thinking. They're going to be able to think, and they're going to be able to think potentially even better than the average human. So this is the stuff that kind of, I guess, like I said, sounds potentially quite terrifying or exciting, or a mix of the two, depending on how you look at this. Good news is we've got some ways to navigate this over the course of the next few episodes. It's creating a lot of noise in the marketplace. Okay, it means that competition is a lot more fierce right now, and the barrier to entry for people to come in and launch the types of businesses that we're doing and create content and put themselves out there, that barrier to entry is so much lower that there's just more noise. There's more noise going on, more people talking about this. That also means that there's an increased skepticism in the industry right now. So when people are looking at your business and your products and your services, there's just that little bit more natural skepticism that's kicking in, because no one really knows what's true anymore, what's real anymore. Everyone's kind of second guessing different things. And so, we kind of went through a period of time where, people were spending in abundance. Sorry, forgive me. There was a period of time where people were, not willing to spend money online because that just felt weird putting your credit card on the internet. And then we kind of hit the dot-com boom, and then really things were taking off. People were comfortable putting their email address into a website, and then they're happy putting their credit card information to buy a $7 ebook. And now you've got people putting their credit card information into their laptop to spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. And so people are spending in abundance right now. And I'm just sensing is not that online spending is going to completely crash, but just there's hesitation in my industry. Okay, so not consumers in general spending on pots and pans and mugs and whatever. That's different, but spending on information, coaching, services, stuff in my industry. There is a resistance to doing that right now, and we're going to talk about some of those problems a little bit further down as well. And it's also just a hot topic. And that's creating noise, and it's getting the attention real estate online right now. And what that means for us is that when we're creating content and not talking about AI, our content is not being pushed out as far as perhaps other topics, because it's just not as interesting, because everyone's thinking about and therefore wanting to learn about AI. So it's just a hot topic. And there's another problem. And that problem is that there's a value proposition for consumers that happens in their head. And I believe we're going to a place now where there's almost like this subconscious downgrade that we're experiencing in the prospect's mind if we don't have AI as part of the deliverables of our offer, right? Whether you've got an agency or a service or coaching or consulting or training and information, if you don't have AI integrated into the way that you're actually delivering for your clients, we're going to hit a point, and we're getting there very, very quickly, where that is actually less valuable now. So if you dig your heels in and you resist this and say, well, I don't want to have AI incorporated into my delivery because I pride myself in the fact that I do everything manually and I really take care of my clients and they feel special, because you're missing a trick, and you're going to get caught in the storm when it's too late. Because the example I gave at my expansion mastermind last week was, when I'm on the phone with BT, that's an internet provider here in the UK, I could be on the phone for 90 minutes talking about a bill that I was charged for that I shouldn't have been charged for. I could be talking to a representative on the phone that took me half an hour to get through to them. I was on hold for ages, just waiting for a representative to become available. Then when I speak to them, they don't have the answers. Then they have to put me on hold again to go and search through my account information. And then they got to speak to their manager to authorize the different things I'm requesting. And all said and done, I could be on the phone for 90 minutes talking about a £182 bill, right? Whereas now couple that with the development of AI and being able to speak to an AI that's been fully trained on everything within that business for BT, and they've got all of my account information up ready in front of them at any given moment in time. And I can have an AI agent answer the phone in 10 seconds uh, handle all of my requests in 5 minutes and then we're off the phone. I'm going to want that. That's going to be more attractive to me than just wanting to speak to a human, right? So it's sad. It's really sad because it means that a lot of people are going to go out, going to lose their jobs, right? Like call centers are just not going to be needed anymore. But this is why I'm trying to prepare you now and get you thinking about this, because this is where we're going and we can't stop it. So there's going to be a point where people who buy our stuff actually want to know that AI is included in some way in your delivery, because they just know that means they're going to get the result out of your program or service faster and easier. I just alluded to this one, but of course, replacing jobs. What used to take a team of 50 will now take 5, and that's just going to be the reality. Okay. So that's AI. Okay. There's more I could say, but I think I'll leave it there for now. The second thing that I'm noticing in our industry that's really reshaping this quite a bit, and it ties in with AI, is the rise and sheer volume of other coaches and trainers and experts coming online. Because the barrier to entry is so low, as we spoke about already, it just means that it's easier than I think it's ever been before for the average person to have a crack at starting a business, and becoming a coach and putting themselves out there. We've got more tools, more software, more ability for someone to do it, so much easier than before. So that's creating busyness in our industries. It's creating more competition, which just means it's harder for us to stand out. We have some solutions for this. We'll talk about them, but it's important that you know. That's the second one. Nice and easy and quick to get through that one. What's the third one? The third one is that because of all of this and other things, trust is at an all-time low. Trust is at an all-time low, meaning what used to take 15 minutes before to build a bit of rapport and a bit of trust with a potential prospect is now taking an hour. It's taking 2 hours to just get someone to the same level of, okay, I trust this person. Think about it as, you go for a coffee with one of your longtime friends, and they bring someone else with them to that particular conversation. Now imagine you're chatting with them and you're getting to know them, right? It takes time for you to kind of suss them out and kind of, they're quite friendly actually. Oh, we've got some stories that we relate on. Oh, this is quite nice. Like it takes time to build trust with someone, right? So now picture that in an online sense. When your prospects and potential consumers of your products and services are scoping you out, they're doing something not too dissimilar to that. They're watching your content, they're clicking on your ads, they're going to your website, they're going in your sales funnels, and they're just sussing you out. So now what would have taken, 15 minutes perhaps of just navigating through some of your stuff and then deciding maybe they're interested to become a client, that's what's now taking, it's just a bit more. It takes an hour. It takes 2 hours. They need to consume more from you to have that trust build. And then number 4, as a direct result of that one, sales cycles are just longer than they've ever been before. And people keep being resistant to this, and I think it's important that we talk about it because, we just can't dig our heels in and stay stuck. What used to be possible was that you would run an ad online on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, or LinkedIn, or anywhere else. You would send that traffic directly to a page where they could watch a 15-minute video, get to know what you're about, and then book a call with you and become a client within, a few hours, right? That's just simply not, I don't want to say not possible, but like significantly harder than it's ever been before. That time between someone being a cold lead, right, or a cold click, they've never heard of you before, to actually getting out their credit card over the phone and becoming a client, that just simply takes longer now. Is it a problem? No, because we've got ways we can navigate this and still build great businesses. But it's just important that we address that and don't pretend like the problem's not there. Because otherwise you're going to keep creating and recording these 15-minute VSLs, these video sales letters, and wondering why that particular version didn't work. And now let me try another VSL. It's like, no, that model is not working anymore. We need to elongate the sales process to match where the market's at. Okay, so those are some of the problems. That was the doom and gloom part, but what I want to do is really serve you here with some of the answers to this and how we're thinking about this. Because what we really need to do is, if you're watching the video version, you'll know we're currently looking at the momentum framework again. We need to change the way we're doing things in step 1, 2, and 3, and that is going to give us a greater result out of 4 and 5. right? If we change the way we think about getting our house in order, the way we're driving traffic, and the way that we're doing our marketing, it's going to make our sales so much easier, and we're going to be able to, get back to the golden age of client acquisition, and it's going to change the way that we maximize results on the back end in step 5, and nurture and convert more of those people. But it all comes in how we're changing and adapting in step 1, 2, 3. So in this episode, I really want to focus on that step 1. Okay, getting your house in order. So what is our response? If you're in a position right now to take notes, I suggest that you do so, because this hopefully will be helpful for you. Firstly, what is our response to AI? Our response needs to be, as you already know, obsessed. And if you've got a team around you, you need to make sure they're obsessed. We are all in as a company. All in as a company, okay? In fact, all of my companies, not just the one that this particular podcast is centered within, which is our marketing education business, but our software platform and everything else that we're involved in, it's all in. All in, not just in the sense that we're giving some time to it, but just mentally. Mentally all in, which means I'm always looking for ways to replace myself and for my team to replace themselves so that we can focus on doing more meaningful work. The more we can replace ourselves down here, the more we naturally elevate and sit on top of that, which means we raise to a higher standard and we're doing more interesting work and more creative work and having more fun doing it. We're looking for different ways that we can implement AI automations into the business. We're looking at different ways we can utilize AI agents in the business as well. If these terms are newer to you, then spend some time looking into this, research this. It's really, really important. I wonder if some of you are listening to this right now and saying, well, John, I get it, right? Like I'm kind of a little bit nervous and also excited, and I know that I need to be all in on this and make some time for this, but I'm just struggling with time. John, you don't get it. I'm already working 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-hour days trying to get this business going. There's no time left for me to have to learn this, and that makes me feel overwhelmed. If that's you, then I have good news for you, okay? First bit of good news is I feel exactly the same, okay? When you start to see success in business, you don't magically get loads of time that just arrives out of thin air. In fact, oftentimes you get busier, and you have to then learn how to manage your time and manage your schedule and manage, your calendar and the things that you're doing, but you're still busy. You've got more that you're juggling, and you've still got problems. The problems just get bigger. So firstly, take comfort in that. You don't need to look at what I'm doing or other leaders in the space and think, if only I get to that level, then I'd have time to experiment with AI. But right now, woe is me, I don't have any time. It's just not the case, okay? We're all in the same boat. Second thing is you can do what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is I'm saying, right, we as a company are all in on this. And if you're a solopreneur listening to this right now, then you just make a decision. I'm all in on this, and what you can be looking at doing is getting help with this. There are there's a booming market right now of VAs in the Philippines and South Africa and other places like that, where they would have done virtual assistant tasks before, where they're helping you to do the odd task here and there. They are well aware now that AI, or at least a portion of this industry, they're well aware that AI is replacing that. And so there's been this shift in the outsourcing space to getting trained up in AI and then being able to offer that as a service. And so there are different names for it. You might call it an AI integrator. You might call it an AI specialist. But you can hire someone relatively inexpensively to help you implement AI into your business. And what this will do is it will get you to a point where you can spend a little bit of time just researching it and looking into it and doing the fun part, right? Which is just starting to understand it, reading some books, watching some YouTube videos, speaking to people about it. And you can have some ideas for like what could be possible. And then you give that to your AI integrator and they go and figure out which tools they would need to achieve the task that you dreamt up off the back of watching a YouTube video that inspired you, right? You can start by paying an hourly rate, for example. If you're counting the pennies right now, then you can pay someone an hourly rate to do a certain task for you. And then you can move to maybe even hiring someone part-time and then hiring them full-time. And even if you have someone full-time, at the time of recording this, we're talking about $1,000, $2,000 US a month for someone full-time to be doing this for you. And they're going to be using platforms like n8n.io or make.com, and there's a bunch of other ones as well that are AI automation tools that link different things together to create a flow, an automation in your business. You can still find great people to do this for you on onlinejobs.ph. That's the classic site that we've all been using for years. There's also big groups emerging. If you search on Facebook for a Facebook group, which I think it's called NAN Philippines, and that group is just growing at an exponential rate, with people in there that are looking for help with AI, and then there's people in there that are able to provide it, and they're looking for work. So that's how we're responding, okay? We're all in mentally and practically, and we're getting help with it to make up for the fact that we don't have time, and we may never have the 6 hours a day required to be studying this in deep focus. So now let's move to some of these other things. So that was AI. Now we're looking at getting our house in order. We're thinking about you, we're thinking about your offers, your brand, and your operation. Let's start first with our offers. How are we responding to the marketplace right now? Trust, as a reminder, is at an all-time low. Skepticism at an all-time high. Competition is fierce. So how are we responding to this with our offers? Well, there is a growing, I don't want to necessarily say problem, because Alex is a friend, but Alex Hormozy wrote a few books, and one of them was $100 million offers, which, by the way, in and of itself, phenomenal book. Just some great lessons in there, and I took a lot away from it too. It really is a great read. However, that book got in the hands of so many people that the great lessons that were in it then became so overused in my industry specifically, which was one of the strategies, creating a guarantee around your offer, a performance-based guarantee in many cases. So you would say, join my program or join my service, and I will get you XYZ result, or you don't pay, or I give you a refund, or this particular outcome. And so more and more people were doing that. And unfortunately, no fault of Hormozy, but people have abused that. It's such a powerful strategy that the industry has abused it. And what that means is we've got people that have popped out of thin air, called themselves an expert. The barrier to entry is so low for them to be able to position themselves looking legit on a very low budget. And you've got these people that, that pop up, crazy guarantee, sweep up a bunch of clients who unfortunately get sucked into that promise of results, and then that person disappears to Dubai with a couple million in their pocket. That's just happened quite a number of times now, and it's left the industry a little bit beat up. And so what is our response to this? How can we make sure our offers don't get put in that same basket, in the same category? Well, we've got two options really, and there's one that you should probably do, and there's one that I wouldn't recommend that you do. First is we meet them where they're at. So we say, well, the industry is all about having flashy guarantees now, and so if I'm going to compete, I'm going to have something similar. And so then you put a guarantee like that on your offer, and now you've taken the onus of responsibility for getting results in your program from the client, and instead you've put the onus on yourself. Now you've got clients coming in with their arms folded saying, hey, get me that result. You promised that you'd help me lose weight, and so where's the result? You promised that you'd help me make $1 million with my business. Where's the result? You promised that you'd get me out of this divorce, and so I'm waiting. Like it creates the wrong feeling when a client comes in, and it's also just a race to the bottom. It's the age-old, price complex, where it's like your competition charges this, and so you go, well, I better charge that, but just a little bit cheaper. And then you start to get some results, and they go, well, I'll just go a little bit cheaper as well, and it's just a race to the bottom. It'd be a very similar thing here. So the second option, however, is that you build more brand equity and you win the customer on trust and relationship over a guarantee. And I learned this lesson very prominently at my annual marketing conference called AdCon, where it comes around every year around about kind of April, May time. We host it here in London. And the last one that I did, we had a few hundred people in the room, and I made an offer at the end on the third day, and we did well over £1 million in sales. In fact, I think it was closer to about 1.2 million in sales. Some would say off the back of a 90-minute presentation, but the reality is, of course, we know that that's not true. There's so much more that goes into it, right? The whole orchestration of the event and the different speakers that I've got and the experience and whatever else. But what's the lesson here and why am I telling you this? It's because when I made that offer, I made an intentional decision that I'm not going to put a weird guarantee in there. I'm not going to meet the market with all of that, what is now feeling like nonsense, the way in which most people use it. I'm actually just going to offer what I've got because I know it's good. And it was my momentum coaching program. It was our brand new coaching program at the time. And I just know how good we are, me and my team, at working with clients and helping them to build their client acquisition machines and turn on marketing and sales processes and scale and expand the business. I know it's good. So I just presented it as it was. And of course, we did over 7 figures in sales. So that taught me something. I was like, you can still get those conversions even in the market that we're in right now. But the way I won those customers and those clients was on the brand equity and the relationship that I had built. I hadn't just had them watch a 15-minute VSL and then expected them to part with £20,000. Right? Instead, they came to a 3-day event and they had that experience and just absolutely loved it. And our attendees were just freaking out at how good AdCon was last year. If you haven't been to one of our conferences before, you may want to consider flying into London for it. It is an experience. There is no event like it, and you're gonna absolutely love it. So we'd made everyone feel like royalty, and so then off the back of that, conversions were super high. So that's what I suggest you do as well. When you're thinking about your offers, don't think about, I've got to meet the market with what feels like, messaging I don't really want to use. Instead, stay true to what you've got and how good it is, and then focus on just increasing brand equity and relationship before you ask for the sale. Something else on offers is that you want to stay lean on the delivery of your offer and explore ways to incorporate AI, as we've already spoken about. My buddy Ryan Dice talks about this idea of the 10-80-10 rule, being that with all of the delivery pieces in your business, you want to think about the 80% being done by AI, and then you just bookend it with 10% human either side. So client comes in, makes a request, they get met with a human who's their account manager, who looks after them and accepts that request and goes off to get it done for them. AI then does the thing. And then out the other end, it's human again that delivers it back to the client with that personal touch. And so, we've eliminated 80% of the work on delivery, but we've bookended it in a really nice way. And the way this would look, for businesses like mine, if I'm incorporating AI into delivery, well, one of our programs, we have clients submitting their webinar slides for, their client acquisition machine. And so, what would usually be one of my team members who I've trained on the webinar framework would then watch the whole webinar, provide feedback, send it back to the client. Well, that might take a few days, right? Well, now we can train up an AI on John's brain, and we've got this in motion in the business already right now on everything I've ever taught on webinars. I'm training an AI so much better than I could ever teach a human being. And then we're able to plug in a client's webinar slides into that, let's call it John's brain. And it's given the critique of the webinar perfectly based on how I teach it, better than any of my coaches could do. And it's done in 5 minutes and we send it back to a client, So that's what we're doing here, staying lean on delivery and exploring ways to incorporate AI. And I really like Ryan's methodology there, the 10-80-10. Then we've got branding. Second piece in there. That's our offers. Branding, I guess there's a few things I just want to say on this. Number one, it's more important than it's ever been before. I alluded to this at the beginning of the episode today, but branding never used to be a piece to this. I mean, I made, I hope this doesn't come across as too arrogant. I mean, I made my first few $1 million, okay? I got to a point where I've made about $2 or $3 million online with these different things I was doing. And I didn't even have a website, let alone a logo for a company. I didn't even have a company. Well, I had an incorporated company, but I didn't have like a public like trading name. It was just John knocking around doing webinars and selling courses, and it just wasn't really a thing back then. Now, with where the market's at, it's more important than ever that you establish yourself with good branding that positions you well, that gives people that feeling of, okay, this is a legit business or a legit person. They've got authority, they look credible, and it gives people a chance to connect with you and connect with your brand and connect with your brand story. Same goes for the incorporation of a website in your overall business strategy. Again, I didn't even have a website until I'd already done considerably well, but now it's really important, and we can be using our websites as something of a sales funnel. The problem with websites historically is that you have a website that doesn't really lead the prospect through a journey of discovering you and then taking the next step. They just get hit with this this page that's got loads of different tabs and links and all sorts going on, and it's just all over the place. So now we want to have a website, we want to have a place where we're established and they can come and learn about us, but we also want it to lead the prospect down a path to take the next step and actually book a call with you if that's the outcome, right? We also want to think about, if you're listening to this right now and you're doing things like webinars or virtual events and things like that, you want to think about branding those. You want to actually think about branding the webinar. For a lot of us, the game we've been playing is that a webinar presentation is enough. We don't have a name or a logo for the actual training. It's just register for my free masterclass or my free webinar. And we're now at a time where even that wants to have some branding on it. Give the masterclass or the webinar a name. Give it a brand. Put a stamp on it. Makes you feel more professional. Has you elevating above your competition. You can think about implementing something I call with my clients the water wheel domain name. If you think about how a water wheel works, the water comes in, it fills one little bucket, that moves around, and then the next bucket gets filled. What currently happens when we're doing online marketing campaigns is that we send water, the traffic, to whatever the thing is that we're currently promoting. And then when it's done, that bucket moves around. And then there's nothing else on the wheel. It's just that one bucket that was just moving around, and then nothing else is being captured. What we want to do is have constantly something going on our domain names. And so, if you check out even the link for our marketing conference, AdCon, if you go to adcon, adcon.co.uk, that is the link where you can hear about that conference, and there's always something going on there, whether we're currently in the process of selling tickets to the upcoming conference, or whether we've got a waiting list, or whether we're doing a special offer, or whether we're doing an online version of AdCon. We've got different things we do throughout the year, but any time in that 12-month period, you can go to that domain name, something is on there, right? There's some way we can capture leads and bring you into the business and show you what we've got going on. Whereas the mistake that people make is that once they're done with a particular promotion, they just leave the domain name saying, sorry, sold out, or offer closed, or worse still, goes to a 404 page, So let's just think about up-leveling our brand in every way in our business, even with the different websites, domain names, and sales funnels that we have floating around the business. And then we've got a couple more here. We've got operation, okay? What are we doing in the operation? This is a quick one, but a couple of quick tips on this. With the things that I've shared, the storm that is coming, you're going to have to stay lean as a business. You've got to stay lean as a business. This is probably a story for another time, and maybe I'll share this on an upcoming podcast, perhaps in the future, but I just had to make a really, really difficult decision in my business to significantly reduce the headcount in my business. It was not an easy decision. It was actually a really hard one I put off for months and months and months, and tried everything else I could possibly do to not have to make that particular decision. But ultimately, for a lot of reasons, which again I'll explain perhaps in another episode, I had to make that decision. And the reality is that decision was made so that this business can continue for those that are still on the boat, for us to continue off into the future and have a great business. Whereas if we've got too many people on the boat, as this storm hits, we're all just going to go and sink. So you've got to stay lean. You've really, really got to stay lean. You've got to be making sure that you've not got too many people on the boat. And anyway, I'll leave you to think on that and ponder that more. Second thing on the operation is that you need to eliminate mess in the business and track everything. We need to make sure that you don't have a messy business, because you can't scale mess. And so you want to make sure that you've got, even if you hate them, you've got even just Google Sheets where you can just be tracking the key things in the business that you need to be. Really, really important that you're doing that. And you know, you've just got a handle on your finances. You've got a handle on your admin. If you need help with those things, you outsource it, you get some help. But the reality is, if you're right now looking down at if your desk in front of you is your current business, and if there's papers everywhere and post-it notes and it's just messy, and if that's a representation of the business that you have, then some of these changes we've talked about is just going to come and just wipe all that away, because you're not going to be able to keep up. You're going to keep up with the changes. You need to be, you need to have the least amount of mess possible, so that you've got a clear view on your business and you can pivot and navigate with the times really quickly. Third thing on operation is protect cash. Okay, you want to protect cash. Really, really important. Don't spend everything that comes in. I remember when I made my first, I feel embarrassed saying this, to be honest, but I've started, so I'll continue. I made my first $1 million online. And I remember there was a moment where I was sat outside of a Nero's Coffee on my high street where I live here in the UK. And I remember just opening up my Lloyd's banking app and having a look at the current balance. And there was £12,000 in there. And I remember just looking at it thinking, where's all the money gone? I've made $1 million. And I had just not managed money well. I just hadn't looked after finances. No one teaches you this stuff in school, right? And no one taught it to me in the business world too. And from that day forward, I thought, this is never happening again. I'm going to have better management of my money. And now more than ever, with, again, how unpredictable the future is looking, you just want to make sure that you've built up the war chest just a little bit, so that you can actually seize opportunities when they arise. You don't have to make those decisions out of fear or on credit cards, but make those decisions confidently because you built for this moment, right? And then we've got you at the very top of this momentum framework and making sure your house is in order. What are we doing with you? Well, there's a few things, okay? Number one, I suggest you take this moment, given everything we've spoken about, and you do a serious audit of your time and get yourself back in the right seats in your business. And if you're currently sat in the wrong seat, or multiple of them, or you're wearing all the hats, this is the moment to do an audit of your time. Like, what do you like doing? What don't you like doing? What are you good at doing? What are you not good at doing? Where do you need help, and where do you need to stay in your lane, and get back to sitting in the right seats, wearing the right hats? There's a great book by a guy called Dan Martell. It's called Buy Back Your Time. It's a really cool book, and I think it'll help you with this. So I'd recommend you check that out. And then you can also do something. There's a really great, there's loads of different personality tests, but there's one called Clifton Strengths. And the Clifton Strengths test is a 200 question test that will really, it reads your soul, basically. When I did this test, I was like, is this going to be accurate? Like, is this just another nonsense personality test? And then I got the results back, and I started reading through this 40-page document that it gives you back. And I was like, goodness me, like this piece of paper now knows me better than my wife even knows me. Like, this is super accurate. But what that's allowed me to do is realize, and have someone else describe it to me, realize what I'm good at and what lane I should stay in, and then where I need help. And now I use these Clifton Strengths tests with all of my employees. I use it when I'm hiring new people, because I now know what I need around me that will complement my skills. You can just search Clifton Strengths on Google, or it's from a company called galup.com. All right. So listen, that concludes today's episode. And we've obviously talked about a lot. We've talked about AI being a massive disruptor. We've talked about our industry, trust being all-time low, and skepticism being at an all-time high. And we talked about some of the big changes that we need to make to how we get our house in order to weather that storm, and then actually get to a place where we can thrive with you, your offer, your brand, and your operation. Now, in the next episode, we've got some really important stuff to talk about. We're going to be getting into how we navigate this storm for driving traffic. If you get this wrong, you are not going to be able to drive traffic, and you're going to go out of business. If you get this right, you are going to be thriving, my friend, with potentially even more traffic than you and your business can handle. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thanks again for tuning in. Great to have you here, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Expansion Podcast.